Hello, everyone. I am assuming I'm live because StreamYard is telling me so. Welcome to my second ever LinkedIn Live. And this is a live broadcast. So, as you probably know, I'm Julia Poger. I'm a business conference and diplomatic interpreter who works from French and Russian into English, and English back into Russian. And I also run a business called Know Your Worth, which helps anybody in the services industry, but of course, particularly interpreters and anyone in a niche industry as well, to understand how to get their name out there, how to sell their services, how to market and negotiate so that you can get the work that you want at the fees that you want and with the conditions that you want. And welcome again to today's broadcast. I'm really happy to see that we are online and live again. And I would like to ask you to let me know where you're coming in from, because interpreters are a worldwide bunch. And quite frankly, I did see some pretty interesting names and interesting places that people signed up to come to for this particular event. If you're watching on YouTube later on, when we are no longer live, then welcome as well. And you'll get a chance to see where people are from later on. Anyway, so today we are going to do an Ask Me Anything again. However, next month, as I kind of teased last month, I'm going to have a guest. And if you stick around to the end of this particular broadcast, you'll find out exactly who that is and what we'll be talking about. Great, we have somebody in from Sanger, California. Fantastic. And off we go on our LinkedIn Live. And hello from Hamburg. Oh, hi, Wei. So we've got Laura, and we've got Wei, and we've got a few more people coming in. It's going to take a bit more time, so I think I will just keep on moving and start with the questions. So the first question is one that I actually did not receive for today's particular broadcast. And unfortunately, however, as you can probably tell, I have a bit of a sore throat. I've had some pretty horrible sore throats for the last couple of days, and I've been not really able to talk, and I still have to work, just like all of you. And so what do we do when we have a sore throat? I mean, sore throats can be a killer, especially when you speak for a living and when if you don't speak, you don't earn. So I'm going to show you a few of the tips and tricks that I have to help you out, because I get this question all the time. So the first thing I have to say is hydrate, 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 hydrate. And here I am about to hydrate. Beyond hydrating, I have been using Chloraseptic. This is an elegant little bottle I bought in England, actually, at Boots. And it's a spray, it's a throat spray, which helps disinfect. So in the middle of your interpreting, you can just go spray and keep interpreting, and it works wonders. I'm not sure if you can get that anywhere else, but I'm sure other countries have throat sprays that work. These are not your be-all and end-all, because what they'll do is they'll numb your throat, and you'll just, you'll hurt your throat even more. But it's something to use if that's all you have. The next product, and I get nothing from these, I'm just letting you know. The next product is something I heard about from my Russian colleagues who discovered it in Germany, and it's Gela Revoice. Yes, you can see that. So Gela Revoice. It's tablets that you suck on. And this one you cannot use while you're interpreting. You have to use before you're interpreting, because it takes a few minutes and you have to be silent while you're sucking on the tablet, which doesn't actually help. So you can do it during your breaks or before or after, but not during. Even if you were able to move that tablet to the side of your mouth and still speak intelligently, it's not really something that would work. The third thing that I have props. I love props. is something I discovered at Whole Foods in the United States, but ever since I have found it online on a certain purveyor of a very large purveyor of products other than books, along with books. And it's called, here we go, Singer's Saving Grace. Now, this is something singers use, opera singers, from what I understand, and they have been warned after they spray it and wait a second or two, not to sing full voiced because it will be much louder than they're used to. What it does is it gets all the ick off your vocal cords so that they can freely vibrate and give you a good sound. Excuse me. And the last thing I want to bring up, and it's what I'm hydrating with at the moment actually, is Yogi Tea Throat Comfort Tea. I'm not sure if you can see that. There you go. Yogi Throat Comfort Tea. It's brilliant stuff. You can find this all over the world. I found it in several countries, online, in health food stores, and so on. They have a very large and wide-ranging range for things for stomach and head and so on. But throat comfort is the bomb. I really, really recommend it. And so I go nowhere without it. And whenever I have a sore throat or a cold, I don't do a job without it either. As you can tell, it's what's keeping me going today. So that was our first question. That was my own question that I didn't get from you guys this time, though I have heard it in the past. It's not just, it's not just out of my head. So last month, we got one big question, or I got one big question that I didn't have time to answer, and I promised I would start this month with. And this is, do you think it's good to work for agencies when you're starting out before you build a personal brand? Now, this is a fantastic question, and I'm really, really happy it was asked, but it's a very big question. And if I answer it, I'll either just have to say yes or no, or I'm going to have to go into detail, and the detail will be all messed up. So I'm going to break it down into 3 parts, okay? And that way, hopefully, you'll be able to understand where I'm coming from on this one. As most times with my answers and with Know Your Worth and everything else, I'm focusing not so much on the process, but on the mindset. Okay, so here we go. The first part of this question is, what is a personal brand? Okay, I know you've heard me say this before, and I won't speak about it for a very long time, this particular part. But a personal brand is what people say about you when you're not in the room. Oh, that person's a fantastic medical interpreter. Or, oh, if you need legal, I know somebody you should absolutely go to. Okay, that's a personal brand. It's not something that, it's not a logo. Okay, it's not something that they tried to build or anything unless they actually set out to become that medical or legal interpreter, took law classes, medical classes, whatever, got credentials, and then started interpreting. I mean, that's one way of building that personal brand. But more likely also, they've also interpreted with many, many different clients in that area, and everybody knows their name. I can think of several people in either of these areas right away, at least with my language combinations. So a personal brand is what people say about you when you're not in the room. And it doesn't have to be only about your interpreting or about your languages or your topics. It could be, oh my God, she's really reliable, or oh, he's very organized, or whatever. This is all part of a personal brand. Now, a brand in general could be a logo. It doesn't have to be. In my case, my personal brand is my name, Julia Poger, or possibly the name of Know Your Worth, if that's the brand that I'm presenting at the time. In both cases, the brand color is red. Okay, it wouldn't be a bad idea for you to get some kind of a style sheet that just gives your color, your, I don't know, your type font that you use all the time, just so you don't forget, and so that when people see that red, they think of you. And quite frankly, it's not quite the same red as my glasses, but I've been wearing these for years, and people now recognize me just from the glasses. So it's a part of my personal brand. Oh, yeah, the interpreter in the red glasses. I mean, I have no idea if anybody says that when I'm out of the room, but whatever. But now you understand kind of the beginnings of what a personal brand is. It's a curated view of you. I mean, I wear black, okay, I don't wear yellow. I wear brown and blue and so on. But, the thing that catches people's eyes is the red. So when I'm doing something business, there will always be something red, and in particular the glasses, the watch, the lipstick. But there will always be something red there. Okay, so that's my personal brand, and that's what yours could be. The second part of this is, how do you build one? All right. When I started out, I didn't wear red glasses. In fact, the first time I put these things on, I mean, look at them. They're bright as all get out, right? I was a bit scared. But after a day or two, I got used to them. And then it got easy to say, well, I'm meeting somebody I don't know for tea. Yeah, look for the interpreter, look for the person in the incredibly bright red glasses. They found me right away. So I saw how useful they were. So, how do you build the brand? Well, as I said before, you can target things, right? Like taking law classes. Um, and you could then tell people about your credentials and work for lawyers and so on. So, that's one way of building it. But basically, building your brand, it's kind of like building your reputation. It's how you live, it's how you work. And without that, how you live and how you work, you're not going to build anything. Um, so if today you're super reliable, tomorrow you're unreliable, the next day you're somewhere in the middle, people are going to think of you as probably the unreliable person, right? Because you're not the same thing, the inconsistent person. And so what you have to do is be consistent. Always do the thing that you want people to remember you for. Okay, so build a brand. Now, I have a question for you as I'm talking about this. What is it that you think that you're selling? And if you took one of my Know Your Worth classes and you know the answer, you can put your answer up later. Let other people get their answers up first, okay? But what is it you think you're selling? And in the meantime, I'll keep talking about building a personal brand. So, um, let me tell you a story about when I first started out. When I first became an interpreter, I passed my degree. I got it at Monterey. I moved to Washington, D.C. I took the State Department interpreting exams and I passed the liaison, which we called escort back then, but we don't do that anymore. And I passed the conference exam. And then there was a large geopolitical event that took place that stopped all interpreting for several months, in fact. In fact, um, I think there were about 6 months when I didn't work as an interpreter. And so what did I have to do? I had to work Manpower. Now, Manpower is a temporary secretarial agency, and I had done that for years before. Whenever I needed some extra money, I would go to a local Manpower. And at Manpower, I learned all sorts of really interesting skills. Things like I can type really fast right now. I can touch type. I mean, I did that anyway in high school, but I can touch type pretty fast, in Russian too. Um, and I can answer lots of phone lines, and I can file, and I can organize, and I can run an office, and I can be a receptionist and all sorts of things because I did all of that under Manpower. All right, so I started doing some Manpower in Washington, and then I got a phone call from State Department. Their habit at the time was to hire local contractors at the lowest level, so escort liaison rate, and have them do some of the work in the office when they needed it. And somebody was going on maternity leave for a few weeks, and I was obviously available. And I said, yes. They had obviously never had anybody who had worked Manpower or as a secretary before from among the interpreters. I filed, no problem. I, cleaned things, organized things, and quite frankly, answered 25 ringing lines with grace under pressure with a big smile on a Monday morning at 9 a.m. Oh my God. Good morning, interpreting, please hold. And there we go. So they had never seen that kind of thing, which means that I, when the interpreting started up again, they were really impressed with my organizational skills, my grace under pressure, my smile, the fact that I seem to know a lot about the country, since State Department is kind of a diplomatic organization after all. And they gave me back-to-back assignments. Granted, they were liaison assignments. I worked like 300 days in my first year. They were not all difficult days, don't worry, but I was on the road a lot, quite frankly. And I got that not because of my interpreting abilities. So I'm not seeing anybody answering my question about what it is you think that you are selling. And if you have taken the class, then feel free to put it in because nobody else seems to be putting it in. But anyway, um, so why did they hire me? Let me explain one thing. When you pass the State Department exam or any other exam, the EU exam, any exam, whenever you pass some kind of a threshold, you become a usable pencil, a basic black pencil. And everybody else who has passed that exam also is a pencil. So whenever you need somebody with that particular qualification that has passed that particular exam, you reach into the drawer, you pull out the pencil, and there's the pencil. Woohoo. And it doesn't matter who gets it, and so on, right? Okay, there are French English pencils, there are Russian English pencils, whatever, but they're still pencils. On the other hand, if you show services skills, very nice. Thank you, Tatiana. Good answer. So if you show your client or whoever it is who's going to hire you, and we know that clients will be direct clients, agencies, and colleagues, right? We talked about that last month. If you show them that you have, as Tatiana has said, services and skills that are outside your interpreting that can capture their imagination, then you will be hired. So suddenly, my pencil was not just put back into the drawer with a bunch of jumbled other pencils, it was kept on the desk, okay? Or it was put in a pencil holder for the special pencils. And so I was getting a lot more work because of that. Not because I would call them and say, oh, I need some work. Though, later on in my career, when there was a policeman outside my apartment blowing whistles at 6 in the morning because of the IMF World Bank joint meetings that I was not working on, but the police were outside blowing whistles, and I would call and say, look, the meetings are going on and I need to get out of my apartment. Yeah, they'd give me a job. But that was several years later. At that point, my pencil became important because I had skills they needed that they hadn't realized they needed necessarily. They didn't know they could have them. Okay, they didn't know interpreters who could remain fine and smiling under pressure because they'd never seen them do it outside of interpreting, whereas they saw me do it outside of interpreting. And here's somebody else. And Wei, would I sell communication and knowledge and peace of mind for clients? Okay, but quite frankly, and actually I'm going to keep that up for just a second, you're not selling interpreting. You're not selling communication. I mean, yes, you are in a way, and Wei very well, very good for having said that, but you're not selling their peace of mind. You're selling, that's what they're calling you for. They figure they're going to have an interpreter who can communicate and give them peace of mind about the communication. What they don't know they can have is an interpreter who can then organize the interpreting, or who can remain graceful under pressure when all of the equipment goes bloom and has to come out of the booth and just start doing consecutive very calmly and very easily and beautifully in front of 1,000 people, which, yes, has happened and will happen to all of us at one point. So what you're selling is the thing that they don't know they can have, okay? And that should be what's part of your personal brand, right? I don't want to be the pencil. I don't want to be the black pencil, okay? I want to be the black pencil that's on top of the desk, or the red pencil, or whatever. I want to be somewhere else. So that's why you want to build your personal brand. And so how you build it is by doing everything in your life to go along with that brand. So had I not been organized and graceful under pressure and so on in the State Department secretarial position, they would never have hired me to be an interpreter with groups that, quite frankly, could make your mind just go boom, right? So you need to build that brand in absolutely everything you do. And towards the end of this broadcast, I'll give you the opportunity to download an article, if you like, about that I wrote. So let's move on to the third part of that question, which is, should you work for agencies when you're starting out? Now, the short answer that I could have put in earlier is yes. Okay, but you wouldn't have understood why. Now you kind of understand why. The agencies are your first place to get work. I mean, where are you going to get work if not from the agencies? You don't know anybody. You don't really have any clients unless you've had a life before interpreting. If you've had a life before interpreting, then you've got a leg up on everybody else because you know how to find clients, you know how to market yourself, you know how to sell yourself, you know what clients are expecting from you, and so on. If you are like so many of us, you went through interpreting school after university, and then you went straight out into the market, you really have no idea, which is why I started Know Your Worth. You don't know how to find clients. You don't know how to talk to them. You don't know how to get your name out, and so on and so forth. So the best way to start when you're just a beginner is to write to agencies and let them know that you're available. And through the agencies, you'll come to know the world of interpreting. You'll come to know how clients react and how they work. You'll also come to know colleagues who, when they get work outside, not from the agency, might call you. If you're building your personal brand correctly, you're reliable, you're good, and so on and so forth. And they might call you to start working, and then you'll work less and less for those agencies. Okay. Now, I'm not saying work for all agencies. Keep this in mind. Know your worth. Some agencies are frankly evil. Not all of them. Many of them are not. Some agencies will ask you for your rate and then will ask you to come down, as happened for me yesterday, quite frankly. Some agencies will give you your fees and your conditions, which has happened to me more often than not. And what you need to do is make sure that the fee that they are offering you and that you're accepting is enough for you to live on. Not just to pay your rent, but to pay your taxes on what you're earning, and to pay your pension and your medical insurance and your food and your clothing, because you have to buy that suit to be able to look good for when you're working, and so on and so forth. So make sure that the fees that you're charging are not livable. Okay, they have to be at least enough to give you a living that month while you're working, and hopefully throughout the year and for many years to come, as well as to grow your business, to buy better clothing and better food and so on. But anyway, make sure that those fees are livable for you at the stage that you're at, and make sure that the conditions are such that they won't kill you. Because quite frankly, if they kill you, then you can't work tomorrow. And that's a bad thing. Okay, so I have two questions here from Wei. Thank you, Wei. What do you do if you've accepted an option and then another client coming in to offer another option? And as I moved to Europe not long ago, could you tell me something about freelancers' pensions? Okay, I'm going to have to save number 2 for later, okay? Because I've got 6 minutes to go to finish the whole broadcast. And number 1 is a big question. So what do you do if I'm going to take this down so people can see me after I've read it again. What do you do if you've accepted an option and then another client comes in to offer another option? Okay, so first of all, I would almost say, what do you do if you've accepted a job and somebody else offers you a better job that you want? Because let me explain the option spectrum for everybody, because I know that people are here not from Europe. So the first request that somebody gives you is for availability. Are you available on this day? They're not giving you anything. You say yes, you say no, that's up to you. If you say yes, and then later on you get some other offer and you're no longer available, you might consider contacting them and saying, I'm no longer available. Thank you for having asked, and I hope you talk to me again. Okay, always say thank you and always say, I hope we can work together in the future. An option is when somebody contacts you and says, I have a job on December 1st. Can you do it? Yes. Okay, great. Let's call this an option. So that means that that client has first dibs on that day for you. Okay. So if somebody else calls you for December 1st and you already have that option, you have to ask them, is this a firm offer or is this an option? And if they say it's an option, and this comes to your question now, Wei, you can say, well, I have another option. If you like, I can call them and ask if they're going to keep it, but I could put you as my second option for that day. You can't really go beyond two, and you must absolutely let them know that they are the second option because whoever has an option has first dibs on your day. Okay. And then you can tell them, I will let you know if the other one becomes a firm contract. If somebody calls and says, oh, it's a firm contract for December, then what you have to do is call the person who offered you the option for December 1st and say, is your option confirmed because I have a firm offer for the same day? If they say, oh, I'm so sorry, I can't confirm it yet, you'll say, I'm sorry, but could you please then release me from the option? I'm going to accept the other job. And they say, of course, and it's normal. It's normal. If they really want you, they'll say, look, it's going to be an offer. It's going to be firm. It really will. It'll be firm in like 3 days. Can you give me 3 days? And, that's up to you. Then it depends on your relationship with the client. Okay. Once you've said it's a firm offer you accept, it is set in stone. Okay. You do not go back on it. If you accepted December 1st and somebody just offered you December 1st to 31st, up to you, but quite frankly, I would turn them down. I would turn down the 1st to 31st because I accepted December 1st. And believe me, enough things will come along anyway. But it's my reputation. It's my reliability, and I am not going to be unreliable for a client. If somebody offers you December 1st to 31st while you're still in the option phase, you can call the person and say, would you mind releasing me from my option? Because I have a month-long offer that covers your day. And then they'll say, let me get back to you later today. They'll see if they've got somebody else to take the option. And then they'll say, okay. Or they'll see that they've got nobody else. And they'll say, I'm really sorry. I cannot release you from the option. I'm making it firm today. And you still have to go with the 1-day job and not the 30-day job. So that's the process. I have 3 minutes. I'm going to go a little bit longer. I hope that doesn't bother anybody. So that's the process. The mindset is what I want to talk to you about for just a second. Remember the pencils I talked to you about, right? We're all black pencils. Well, what happens if you're the organizational interpreter or you're the red interpreter, whatever, and you've convinced your client and you've shown your client that they can have this new dream on top of the interpreting that they can have. They can have this organizational side that they didn't know about, or this grace under pressure side that they've never seen before, or whatever, right? They can have all of that with you, the red pencil, not the black pencil. And suddenly you go to your client and in fact, you're charging for a red pencil because of course, red pencils charge more than black pencils do, don't they? Anyway, and then you go back to your client and you say, you know what? Because you got this 30-day offer instead of a 1-day offer. I'm going to let you work with my other colleague here, who's actually in your client's mind a black pencil, right? So you're bringing them back down to the black pencil. You're telling your client that really a black pencil would have done. There's no reason they needed to hire you as a red pencil. They didn't need your organizational skills that much. It was a pipe dream that they had. And they, of course, were going to overpay you. And now they're going to definitely overpay a black pencil. So what you're doing is you're destroying your reputation with that client. You're also destroying the reputation of almost any other interpreter who has explained and demonstrated to clients that they have dreams that we can serve that are not simply interpreting. You're undermining everybody who has ever told a client that interpreting brings value other than being a dictionary on legs. And that's the mindset that I really would love for all of you to change. It's not that you need to fill every single day with work. Yes, you need to live. Yes, I need to live as well. And when I needed to live and there wasn't enough interpreting, I would manpower. But quite frankly, whenever I gave up a big job, it didn't matter because I would get a smaller job for a few days. And quite frankly, the smaller jobs paid better. Okay, because there's nobody who's going to hire me for 30 days at a higher rate, right? It's always going to be a much lower rate because it's 30 days. They're going to take into account the discount because it's 30 days long and so on. So maybe I'm earning X on the 30 days, but I'm earning 2X on the other days. So with 3 other days or 4 other days, I'm making up 8 of those 30 days. Okay, that's not half yet, but that's already just the beginning. So the mindset is the most important thing. You do not let down a client, and especially not a client that you have proven to and demonstrated that you are not simply a black pencil. In fact, you might even be a Chanel red lipstick, which could be a really good thing to be. Anyway, so that's it for the questions for today. Thank you so much, Wei, for having given me that last one. I promise I'll move the pension question to in 2 months or my next AMA, or I'll talk to you offline if you need any question, if anything answered ahead of that. Okay. Now, thank you for coming. Before I tell you my top tip for the end of today's show, I just wanted to tell you what next month's show is going to be. And so I am going to have a guest, as I've told you, and that guest is somebody that I have known for many years. In fact, ever since I worked in State Department, and it's Patricia Magno-Holt. So Patricia Magno-Holt, or Patricia Arizu back then, was the former chief interpreter of the US Department of State. And when I first met her, she was a staff interpreter and a wonderful one. And she's been doing diplomatic interpreting throughout her career, both as a freelancer, as a staff interpreter, and then as the chief interpreter. And what I'd like to do is have a conversation with her to answer your questions about diplomatic interpreting, but also to tell you a bit about what exactly it is, what you do in the middle of diplomatic interpreting, and what it is in particular that chief interpreters are looking for when they're looking to hire you. So I hope that that will be a very interesting thing for you. And now to today's top tip. Oh, good. I'm very glad that the answer held. So today's top tip is, and I bet you can guess it from what I've been saying today, how you do one thing is how you do everything. Anything you do when you meet a client, how you shake their hand, okay? How you smile at them, how you dress, the glasses you wear, whatever, everything plays into your brand. And they will believe that if you are an expert in marketing, as I am here, for example, in giving this class or this live, you now believe that I'm also an expert interpreter, even though you've never even heard me say a single word in Russian. Okay, and I'm not going to now. But I'm just saying, you have this idea that I would be a brilliant teacher of Russian interpreting. I might be a brilliant Russian interpreter. I've told you that I'm a really good organizer. You might actually believe that. So how you do one thing is how you do everything. And the important thing is that everything includes, and in fact, very often starts with a CV or a resume. Now, I offered you an article that I've written. I've had many, many, many questions, both from colleagues who have worked for many years and from colleagues who are just starting out on how to write a resume or a CV. Resume in the US, CV in Europe. CV actually means something else in the US, but I'll let that slide for now. So I've written an article about that, Because very often your CV is your first contact with a new client. You'll have written them a very nice cover letter. That's actually your first contact. But then they look at your CV and it tells them how organized you are, how focused you are on helping them solve their problem. And if you want to receive this article, please just put a 4 into the comment section, the number 4, into the comment section, and I will send you that article directly. I'll either do it through LinkedIn or however I know you, I'll send you a copy of that article. So this is an expanded version of the article that you may have seen online a couple of months ago that I wrote for the ATA. In this case, this is much more expanded and talks a lot more about why you do what you do and gives a couple of examples. So if you want that article, put in the 4. And that was my top tip for today. Beyond that, remember we're talking about diplomatic interpreting next month on December, I think it's 3rd, on Saturday at 4 p.m. CET. I promise not to put up 2 separate events again because I got a little confused with the daylight savings time and the time changes and so on. 4 p.m. CET, so that's this time where I am sitting right here. And thank you for coming live. Thank you for wanting my article. Thank you for the questions. And please keep them coming because without your questions, I don't have a LinkedIn Live, do I? And see you soon, I hope, somewhere on the internet, if not in actual person. And I look forward to seeing you in December.